Italy, a country in Europe, is struggling to qualify to the 2026 World Cup, and somehow Africans are to blame for it. According to the coach of the Italian national team, Gennaro Gattuso, there are too many countries from Africa in the 2026 World Cup, and that is why Italy is struggling to qualify. Bro, this is one of the dumbest things I've heard in my life, and the math is so outrageous that I can't even bring myself to understand why somebody would say something like that. Before we get into all of that, my name is Nenebi Tony. I'm a Ghanaian writer who lives in the US. On this channel, I talk about geopolitics from the perspective of an African. So what we are going to do is geopolitics, the politics of the World Cup, not the game itself, you know. Let's talk about math. There are 54 countries in the European Football Federation, UEFA. And there are 54 countries in the African Football Federation, CAF. And out of the 54 countries in Europe, 13 of them had a chance to qualify to the 2022 World Cup. And out of the 54 countries in Africa, 5 of them had a chance to qualify to the 2022 World Cup, which means that 1 out of every 4 countries in Europe had a chance of qualifying to the 2022 World Cup. And 1 out of every 10 countries in Africa had a chance to qualify for the 2022 World Cup. And guess what? Italy did not qualify for the 2022 World Cup. With all the math advantage, Italy did not qualify for the 2022 World Cup. Italy won the 2006 World Cup, and from then they've kept moving from bad to worse. They were eliminated in the 2010 World Cup in the group stages. In the 2014 World Cup, they were eliminated in the group stages. They didn't qualify for the 2018 World Cup. And like I said earlier, they didn't qualify for the 2022 World Cup. And guess what? FIFA wants to grow the World Cup to more countries because guess what? There are more countries in the world today than there were in 1990 when the 32 countries were, decided for the World Cup, right? And so now there are going to be 48 countries competing in the 2026 World Cup. And out of the 48, 16 of them are coming from Europe, 9 of them are coming from Africa. So, out of the 54 UEFA countries, 1 out of 3.5 have the chance to qualify for the 2026 World Cup. Out of the 54 CAF countries, 1 out of 5 has the chance to qualify for the 2026 World Cup. So, European countries still have a huge numerical advantage over African countries. And even it's crazier when you think about it this way. Every African country that qualified to the World Cup for the 2026 World Cup have to play 10 games. Every European country that qualified for the 2026 World Cup had to play between 5 to 8 games. So, African countries have less representation and more work to qualify for the World Cup. European countries have always had a numerical advantage. Nothing happened to the numerical advantage Europe had. Gattuso's issue is that he said when he played in the World Cup in 1990 and 1994, only 2 countries from Africa played in the World Cup. There were 3 countries from Africa, but let's forget about that. And now there are 9 countries. And so that is a big disadvantage to Italy. Moving from 3 to 9 did not disadvantage Europe in any way in the qualification process. Right? The only issue is this. There were 32 countries in UEFA in 1990, right? Now there are 54 or 55 countries in UEFA because nobody talks about this, but European countries don't get along. There are so many wars in Europe. So European countries have a habit of splitting up. Everybody is always talking about wars in Africa. Nobody talks about wars in Europe because they are white. And so European countries have splitted up so that now there are the same number of countries in Europe and as compared to the same number of countries in Africa, even though speaking in terms of size, Africa is way bigger than Europe. You understand? And so the reason why Italy qualification process look more cumbersome for Gattuso is because white people in Europe fought wars and split up their countries. Has nothing to do with Africa. Europeans have a habit of mingling in situations in Africa. Africans do not mingle in political situations in Europe. So, who Gattuso should be blaming is his fellow white men. But white men in 2025 have gotten into the habit of blaming black men and DEI as the reason why they are not doing well. I just laid down the numbers for you. Africa's chances of qualifying to the World Cup has nothing to do with European chances. 1 out of 3.5 is an improvement on the chances of an European country qualifying to the World Cup as compared to the last World Cup, which was 1 out of 4. Right? So, the World Cup qualification process have gotten better for Europe. The odds have gotten better for European countries, and Italy is still struggling to qualify for the World Cup. If they miss this World Cup, this will be the 3rd time they are missing the World Cup. It has nothing to do with Africa again. I just wanted to point this out, right? And let's, everybody understand this. That when people speak like this and we let them go unchecked, it perpetuates this stereotype that somehow black people are getting preferential treatment on the world stage. Nobody is getting preferential treatment on the world stage. 54 countries in Africa, 54 countries in Europe, 16 countries in Europe go to the World Cup. Now 9 countries in Africa go to the World Cup. Who is getting preferential treatment here? This is a serious issue because it transcends football. This is about politics. This is about mentality. There's this mentality. I had a video earlier, maybe this week, when I spoke about Elon Musk's father talking about the fact that black people are becoming the majority in America. And I was talking about the fact that this issue of white replacement theory, that white people somehow have convinced themselves that black people's progress is somehow a dent on white people's progress, when the odds have always been in favor of white men, is crazy to me. And I have another video where, probably I'll put it at the end of this video, where I explained historically how African countries got a slot to play at the World Cup. The first few World Cups, Africans have to play qualification, and when leaving the continent of Africa, they have to play playoff against Asia and Oceania to be able to qualify to the World Cup. And African fought for the slot, for one slot, when it was 16 countries, and then we moved on to 32 to 2 or 3 slots when it was 32 countries, and it got to 5, and now we are at 9. But anytime the numbers in Africa had increased, the numbers in Europe also increased. People in South America and North America, if they said that the World Cup is unfair to them or FIFA is unfair to them, it's understandable. North America and South America is not complaining. It is these Europeans who are complaining. If you know the history of racism in football, you understand why this is a big issue that we have to call out as a people. Anyway, I wanted to point this out and let the world know that, yeah, things like this, somehow these Europeans thinking that we are taking their jobs, we are taking their whatever it is, the thing we are taking from them, we need to check it. We need to let that way of thinking be deaded. Look at the numbers. I look at the numbers. I use ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT agent mode to compare the qualification route of every African country that has qualified to the World Cup now and compare the qualification route of every European country that have qualified to the World Cup now. The averages are similar, even though the African countries had a harder time because you have to play 10 games as compared to the Europeans. There are two countries, La Côte d'Ivoire and Tunisia, who didn't concede any goal to qualify to the World Cup from Africa. There are countries like Ghana who had the best defensive performance in any country in the world to qualify for the World Cup. So Africans are not getting preferential treatment. We are pulling our weight. How we perform at the World Cup is a different conversation. The qualification is what he's talking about. But even the last World Cup, out of the 5 countries from Africa, I think about 2 or 3 of them qualified from the group stages. I think 3, right? And so Ghana was a big disappointment. We need to do better. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out and also say this about the fact that Nigeria is officially not qualifying for the World Cup. I'm so excited at the news that Nigerians always think that they are equal. Bro, you are not. Go and play your AFCON. You are the person Gattuso was talking about. That's a joke. I'm sorry for saying that. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. Subscribe to my channel if you like geopolitics. Mostly, I talk about the World Cup because on this channel, I talk about international relations, foreign policy, geopolitics, and stuff like that. And I believe that the World Cup is one of the biggest stages of geopolitics in the world. And so the World Cup always gets talked about. I don't really talk about club football. Once in a while, I'll talk about basketball because I enjoy basketball and I live in the US. So that's, you know what, let me say something about basketball. We don't talk enough about how size matters in sports. Wemby is dominating the NBA right now because of his size. Wemby is over 7 foot tall. I believe he's 7.5. And this season, he is changing basketball. Because Wemby started a season scoring, putting so many points on the basket, making so many shots, and putting so many points on the board, the rest of the league is competing on his level. When you saw how he went ball to ball or shot 3-pointer for 3-pointer with Steph Curry, you realize that Steph Curry is competing at this level in 2025 because he's feeling the competition from Wemby. I like when that happens, when a player is having a breakout year and the rest of the league, in order to compete with that player, also bring their best. This season of the NBA is definitely going to be one of the best seasons thanks to Wemby, my boy Luka, and the rookie the one in Philly. I don't remember his name, but he's also killing it. Anyway, thank you for watching. We'll talk later.